Hi guys, this video is mainly for the League of Legends community and gamers that are trying to stream. I basically wanted to show you guys how you can make your in-game frames per second a lot smoother. I know some of you guys can play on lower frame rate, but generally what screws with people's minds is the stuttering and so-called lag, whether it's network lag or your computer lag, or whether you have too many things running in the background like Skype, YouTube videos, or Pandora. Nobody usually looks at this sort of thing, but here's a graph of the cores on your CPU and what they're normally doing. So this is a Intel Core i7 CPU, and just by default, configured by the CPU and the motherboard, each individual core tries to save as much power as possible. So it'll throttle itself and run at like a third of the speed that it's advertised to be running at. And right now, I'm streaming this on the same computer, and you can see that OBS is encoding the video, and none of the processor cores are really behaving in any sort of predictable manner. They're just kind of like off doing their own thing. And you can kind of see from the average speed of each CPU, they're all different numbers to further indicate that they're just kind of doing their own thing. And of course, this causes these so-called micro stutters and missed skill shots and just inconsistency in your frame rate, really. I'm not saying this suggested solution will make it, stay at 1 FPS, because there's still different things going on in the game and in your background processes that can affect your FPS. What I'm saying is it will give you a much smoother experience after you apply this fix. So after you make these adjustments, what will end up happening is all of your cores will lock to one speed and stay at that speed. So there will be no like this round robin bouncing around, Windows Task Manager doing crazy things, trying to balance the workload, because your computer doesn't know that League of Legends is the highest priority, and that should get all of the CPU power. It doesn't know that. So this will help it out a bit. So you can see from this picture right here, the end result is all of the cores are locked at their maximum speeds. And a little background on this is that whether you have an unlocked CPU that came like from Newegg or a custom built computer, or whether you have a pre-built computer from a retailer like Dell, whether you have an unlocked CPU or not, this fix works. And as far as I know, it works across all sorts of chipsets. So even if you have a low-end H61 chipset, you may need to Google this, or whether you have a Z97 chipset. These settings are all available even on the cheapest like $40 motherboards. So I'm going to show you here on my side webcam here what the motherboard settings look like. So every motherboard, and granted every motherboard is a little bit different, you're going to find something called CPU core ratio. And basically, if your motherboard has a lower end chipset, or if your CPU is locked, you can set this number obscenely high, and it'll automatically just go to whatever highest is allowed by the CPU or the motherboard. But in general, you don't want to make this number more than 40. So in my case, my CPU is locked at 3,300 megahertz, and so if I punched in a number for the ratio like 40, what it'll end up doing is it'll just go to default to 33. Now if you have an unlocked CPU, for example like the Core i7 4770K, what'll end up happening is it'll literally just go to whatever number that you punch in there, which you need to really be careful with. But as far as like how mature the technology is, generally 40 is a good number. 40 is a very safe number. So I would say punch in 40 as the general ratio, just because it's safe whether your CPU is unlocked or not. So core ratio 40. Speed step technology, you want this disabled. This is what allows your CPU cores to roam in, for lack of a better term, roam in megahertz. So you want speed step technology disabled, and you want turbo boost technology enabled. Turbo boost technology is what allows the individual cores to actually exceed the speed of their advertised on the box, their advertised speeds on the box. So next, you should have something that says CPU configuration. It may be called something different or organized in the motherboard menus a little bit differently, but there should be something that allows you to take a closer look at CPU configuration. So ahead of time, I'm going to tell you that most laptops do not have this advanced of a menu for settings in the motherboard. So if you're on a laptop, you're probably out of luck, unless you're on a high-end laptop such as an Alienware, Dell Alienware. So the states that you want to so basically the settings that you want to disable that allow the CPU cores to bounce around in speed is enhanced halt state. So they could be called different things. They could be called C3 state, C6 state, package C state support. But generally, you're looking for any sort of energy conserving mode. So in this case, the C1E, C3, C6, this is all disabled. And once you do that, save the settings and reboot back into Windows, you should go ahead and download this program called HWInfo64 and check to see if your CPU cores are locked to the same speed. And for the most part, this will end up using more power, but your CPU only uses like 80 watts, you know. How much power could it really burn? And this should make your game a lot smoother, especially if you're a streamer. It'll prevent your FPS from just randomly dropping to like 40 from like 80, just 50% of what it normally is. Good luck with that, and if you have any questions, shoot me a message in the comments or something like that.